Welcome in, folks. Tonight, I want you to know that you do not suffer because you're broken. You suffer because you've forgotten who you are. There are 7 levels of spiritual amnesia that keep you trapped. And tonight, I'm going to show you how to break every one of them. See, spiritual amnesia is that feeling you get when you feel like you've spent so many years on growing, so many years on developing, on following your inner voice, following God's will. But when life falls apart, all of a sudden, it's like you forget everything. It's like you're caught back in an argument, yelling at someone as if you didn't just go through years of transformation. It's like you forgot every single piece of wisdom that you ever heard. I can't tell you how many times I hear people say, it's like I understand this truth. I understand this oneness, this consciousness. It's like some days I am completely enlightened, completely in light, and I can feel the power of the infinite moving through me. And then it just all goes away. Like I can't stay there. That's the words, that's the phrasing I hear over and over again. I cannot stay there. I get to this moment of heightened elevation, heightened bliss. Some even say supreme love, and I cannot stay there. It's like I fall back into some abyss, some forgetfulness. It's like I have this amnesia. See, anybody can get to calm and get to clarity and get to peace once. Who can stay? Ooh. Anybody can get to calm, get to clarity, get to peace once. Who can stay? The point is for us to live our lives from this place of clarity and abundance, from this God-centered place. When I say God, I'm just referring to the fabric of existence. I don't mean dude in the sky. I mean whatever the basic basis of reality is. You can feel it moving through you. You can feel its power, but then something happens. There's the tragedy. Someone passes away. Someone overlooks you. Someone disrespects you. And all of a sudden, it is like the knowledge of ages gets lost to time. This is spiritual amnesia. When you forget that divine center and life feels like it's pulling you off in several different directions. That's the amnesia I'm talking about. That's the forgetfulness. When you had it, and then not. It was almost there, but it couldn't stay. So that's what When I talk about spiritual amnesia tonight, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. And if this is your first time joining, then I want you to know that if you're ready to live free beyond fear, welcome here. I'm Dr. Shawn, and I believe you do not need years to heal. You just need one real breakthrough. That's why I invented Transcendent Psychology, and I tested in the real world on real people on my game show, Countdown to Breakthrough, the only game show that heals your soul. Right now, you're on the Breakthrough Live, where we break down the science of healing so you can get your own breakthrough. Live. On today's show, we're talking about spiritual amnesia. By the end of this conversation, I want you to understand not just how to arrive at peace, but how to stay at peace, regardless of what's happening in your life. This is one of the most crucial, arguably the greatest skill. I don't actually think it's arguable. It's the greatest skill that you can have on this plane of existence is the capacity to put yourself in a good mood when there are no reasons to be in a good mood. The ability to put yourself into the peace that passeth all understanding when there's nothing to be peaceful about. To be able to keep your head and your heart when the entire world around you is falling apart. There is no greater skill. Because while other people are crumbling under pressure, you can be a light that shines for them. You can be a light that is able to move where others cannot, and so light the way. In traditional terms, we just call this leadership. And so tonight, whether or not you're talking about leadership for your family, leadership for your spouse, leadership for your community, we're talking about first surrendering to the leadership of God. Supreme consciousness. And so we'll do that right now. Okay, Twin, I see you in the room. By the way, if you are joining, make sure to say hello. I want to be able to shout you out when you do come in. He says, good evening, Dr. Shawn. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. And so first, folks, what I want to do is hit to a clip of Countdown to Breakthrough, because this is actually going to set up our conversation and our lesson as we jump into the 7 levels of spiritual amnesia. There's one thing I need you to know first. We need to get clear on what this concept of infinite consciousness is. When I say God, you'll hear me say fabric of reality, but that's another way of saying infinite consciousness, infinite awareness, supreme awareness, as we talked about last week. These are the central concepts that, and when they are just concepts, eventually we want to bring you into direct experience. We'll get to that. But the concept itself is so valuable. I believe now is our moment to begin to see exactly how this works. Here we go. Infinite consciousness. Will you be among the few to discover a whole new universe within? Welcome. This is Countdown to Breakthrough. Excuse me, ma'am. Hi there. Actually, I was just hoping to show you how beautiful your mind is.
Before we start, what is infinite consciousness and how can we use it? To answer that question, imagine that long before the universe existed, there was an infinite field of awareness, and this awareness was you. Without a body to fear dying, without another to feel ridicule, being everything, you had everything. There was nothing to want. Until one day, you decided to see yourself with human eyes. And so you dreamed that you were human. You make believe in history, time, humanity, the world, and universes, all so you can see yourself in a million different ways from the eyes of a human being. To make your trick complete, you decide to forget who you really are. To forget that you are an infinite being merely dreaming, so that your dream can feel real. But deep down, you know your dream is only temporary. And one day, you will wake up laughing, remembering you are boundless. Were you to give this dream a name, it would be called today. What I've just described to you is kind of like a creation story for consciousness.
Okay, so there we go. There it is. So now we're talking about this infinite awareness that we are before we are born. But then the question remains that if we are this consciousness, this awareness, that before any world begins, before any body is born, there is this infinite field of consciousness, and out of it, it dreams the world, it dreams existence. And if that consciousness were you, I mean, how could you ever forget? A part of you recognizes that this hypothetical, there's a little bit of resonance in it. Like, oh yeah, of course that's true. Who else but I would be able to dream all of this? You can feel that. And you can feel that you are the I. Though some people may have their debates and arguments, the idea is this. Were we to take seriously the claim that consciousness is the dimensionless presence out of which our world, our universe, our multiverse, our existence emerges, then this concept of spiritual amnesia, the 7 layers of spiritual amnesia, are really the 7 layers of forgetfulness when it comes to our original nature, the original nature of infinite consciousness. And so, without further ado, what I want to do is get to the 7 levels of spiritual amnesia. These levels are kind of like layers of forgetfulness that we move through as we exist in a human domain where our primary purpose is to return to God. God, fabric of reality, infinite consciousness, all the same thing. All the same thing here. And so let's go ahead and hit the 7 levels of spiritual amnesia right now. Okay, so here we go. Level 1, the first level of spiritual amnesia. The reason that suffering can happen in this domain is because we engage in a spiritual forgetfulness. Let me say that one more time. The reason that suffering can happen on this plane of existence is because we engage in a certain forgetfulness. Tonight, I'm calling that forgetfulness spiritual amnesia. This forgetfulness, this spiritual amnesia requires that we lose touch with our divine sensibilities, with our original nature, lose touch with the infinite, and so get caught up in the distractionary world. And so level one looks like this. The first level of spiritual amnesia is this: the forgetting of presence. This is where you leave the now. When you forget presence, that's the moment when, in human form, that's the moment when you're walking through your day, you're going through your day, and all of a sudden you're distracted by what you have to do next. You're distracted by future, or your mind gets swallowed up in some trauma that happened in your past. You're distracted by past. Either way, you have left the now. This is the first level of spiritual forgetfulness. It's the first level of spiritual amnesia. The second level is this: the forgetting of wholeness. Once you forget to be present, once you forget to stabilize yourself in the present moment, you leave a unitary experience. At that moment, you are dividing the world into at least two parts: you and it. The forgetting of wholeness could also be called the forgetting of oneness. This is where you see yourself as separate from existence. Something happened to you. A future is coming for you. You no longer see yourself as embedded within the deep fabric of reality. Instead, you see yourself as a tiny person with all these problems. That forgetting of wholeness leads to the third level of spiritual amnesia. That's the forgetting of power. That life now happens to you instead of through you. When you forget that wholeness, that oneness, you forget that you're not the one calling the shots, not you as a tiny individual human, that there is a sacred cosmology that is working on your behalf, but you can no longer see it. Once you've left the domain of wholeness, you've robbed yourself of that domain of power. That's why the third level of spiritual amnesia is the forgetting of power. Life now happens to you, or so it seems, which leads to level four. This is the forgetting of purpose. Forgetting the very reason that you chose to come into human form in this lifetime. Forgetting the very reason that you chose to come into human form in this lifetime. What are you actually here to do? If life is happening to you, then that feels like somebody else is in charge of your purpose. And maybe after you get done doing X, Y, and then Z, maybe you can have some time later for a purpose. Maybe once you get off work, maybe once you go ahead and get the kids through college, maybe once in the future you can return back to the reason you were born, but for now you forgot it. This is the forgetting of purpose. It's level 4 of the 7 levels of spiritual amnesia. Level 5 is the forgetting of voice. Once you've forgotten your purpose, you no longer can hear the inner voice speaking to you. You're not even listening to it. You've forgotten what it sounds like to listen to it in the first place. This is the forgetting of that inner voice. Can you see how we're going deeper and deeper and deeper into these deeper levels of forgetfulness? Level 1 wasn't so bad. The problem is that it snowballs into these deeper and deeper domains of destruction. And so, level 6, if you can no longer hear your inner voice, you're apt to see yourself through your own pain, which is the 6th level of spiritual amnesia. And seeing yourself through your own pain, the worst part is that leads to number 7, which is the forgetting of love itself. It's where you forget that love and self are one. You would be surprised at how many people there are who are already operating with a certain level of wisdom, but if you ask them to feel love right now, just to turn it on, just to feel love inside of their own body, to feel it like a radiant light, to feel it like a radiant energy, these folks struggle. And wouldn't it make sense for people to struggle if they were already at the 7th level of spiritual amnesia? Think about all the things that they had to go through. Let me come back. Think about all the things that they had to go through, that they will have to go through in order to return back to self. It's not so many steps, but someone has to remember. We have to remember. And so today, I just want you to take one last look. These are the 7 levels of spiritual amnesia. And I'm seeing Twin come through and say, welcome in, by the way. He's saying most of us live at 6, and I see why 7 is so hard. Say more. I want to hear you say more on that. You saying most of us live at 6, people seeing their life through their own pain. Okay, let's go ahead and come through. He's saying most people live at 6, seeing their life through their own pain. Of what's defined by the pain of their past. Might fight you if you try to take it away from them. These levels of forgetfulness, they perhaps the worst part is that the deeper you move into the levels of spiritual amnesia, the 7 levels, the harder it is to even notice. The harder it is to even notice. You just spend your time chasing the things that someone else conditioned you to want. So, if in the beginning you were this awareness, if in the beginning there was infinity and it was married to eternity and you were there, would you like to remember? Sublime, good evening. Good evening. I see you coming through. Twin saying I'm speaking from my own experience. Absolutely. Absolutely. I know there's some extra chats in here, and my joint is we'll get that worked out. But folks, since we're at this place where now we can say, okay, we understand the 7 levels of spiritual amnesia. One more time, here they go. Now that we're at this place where we can say, we understand the 7 levels of spiritual amnesia, you know that now we have to get into today's lesson, which is the principle, the pattern, and the path. So, we talking about I like to teach from principles. When you understand the principle, you can find your own way. When you understand the principle, you can find your own way. So let's move from principle tonight. In transcendent psychology, I like the teaching from principles because once you understand the principles, it's easy to find the pattern and it's easy to find the path forward. So I like to talk in terms of principle, pattern, and path. Let's handle the principle first. Here we go. I'm gonna keep this. I'm gonna keep my board. I know Twin had an issue last week. He was talking about some, get a bigger board. Uh, um, but I'm not trying to have it be too clunky in this joint. You know what I mean? So here we go. This concept of spiritual amnesia. Okay, I already know I need to write that way bigger. Let me go ahead and do that. This concept of spiritual amnesia happens what I'm calling this concept of spiritual amnesia. This happens once you forget the self. That's the principle. All spiritual amnesia, all 7 levels of spiritual amnesia are really just one level of forgetting the self. They are 7 stages of mutation after you've forgotten the self. The self is more than your body. The self is more than your mind. It's more than your intellect. It's more than your capacity for reasoning. It's more than left hemisphere of the brain, right hemisphere of the brain. We see that modern science tells us that our universe appeared from a big bang, a single speck of matter. But as the single speck of matter expands, it never becomes two things. It only looks that way. It's not like another speck of matter came through from another universe and started adding up. Like, no, it's not a cumulative pile. It's an expansion. A single speck of substance expanding and becoming our known universe. That's what the situation is. That single substance, if you wanted to take the matter model. In transcendent psychology, we don't really take the matter model. We just say consciousness. But for people who do like that route, either way, that single substance is the self. We recognize that there can be no distinction. If God is infinite, there cannot be another place where God isn't. In other words, that infinity of God must run through each of us to the point where an each of us isn't even possible. It's just infinity, which means it's just God. That God is what we call the self. More than just yourself. We're talking about the self. Let me know if that's not making sense. We're talking about the self. That's the principle. That spiritual amnesia happens once you forget the self. Okay. Let me know in the chat. Put one in the chat if that's making sense to you. I don't mind pausing and articulating this a different way. Before we move on to the pattern, let me know that you got the principle. Before we move on to the pattern, let me know that you got the principle. Okay, Sublime is saying everything is everything. Okay, I'm seeing ones across the chat. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Everything is everything. That's, man, shout out to the culture. People made that very clear. I never understood what that meant. Like as a kid, I would be like, everything is everything. What do you mean? Like, of course, everything is everything. Like, you know what I'm saying? Y'all said it the first time. What you say it the second time for? And then, and then, and then you start seeing the depth. Everything is another way of saying all is one. So we return to our principle. All right, twin. I see you putting the 111s in there. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So we return to our principle. Spiritual amnesia happens when you forget the self. So what's the pattern? Now we got to know the pattern. Hmm. We got the principle that spiritual amnesia happens when we forget the self. What's the pattern here? I mean, why is it that we forget the self? Why across all cultures, across all human timelines up to this point in recorded history, there are plenty of instances where most people are living in a state where they have forgotten the self, regardless of what they call it. They might call it God, they might call it Allah, they might call it Krishna, they might call it, they might call it Yo, they might call it um, Roth, they might call it so many different things. But the idea is that why is it that they have, why is it that humans in general, why do we forget the self? This is the pattern I want to start getting at. So here we go. So here we go. The reasons The reason that human beings forget the self is because human beings have a problem with human perception. This is pretty important. I'm gonna make sure I can get this in the light. It's kind of got a glare on it a little bit. You can kind of see the lights and stuff. So you forget the self because you are limited by the five perceptions, by the five senses, rather, that make up human perception: sight, sound, taste, touch, smell, right? The five, that's why I made these lines right here. Okay. We're getting real artistic up in here. The five lines: sight, sound, taste, touch, smell. These five senses are limitations of human evolution at this particular point in history. And they create the optical illusion that you are confined within a single human body and you are reacting to a hostile planet. That human perception creates the optical illusion, the experience of being limited, of not being infinite, of being a finite individual who's only got a finite amount of time to be alive and get as much money as you can and get as much this as you can and get as much that as you can and save up for your kids and all this. That sensibility, that is the foundational element in all warfare. What are we talking about when we talk about war? It's people who a lot of times are fighting over trade routes. And trade routes to empires does mean the continuation of that empire. But if you understand the basic fear is that if we lose access to a resource, we won't be able to eat. We won't be able to feed people. We won't be able to build. And so believing that the resources are limited, people fight to protect them, to establish them, to dominate them. That's on a scale of warfare. But when we're talking about just the individual, isn't it the same thing? That when you feel limited based off of what you can see, based off of what you think is possible, based off of what you've seen before, you come to conclusions about your own limitations. You come to conclusions about what can be true for you and what isn't. You come to conclusions about what your past actually means. And usually those conclusions are not expansive. How could they be? You arrived at them from a place of limitation. That's why in Transcendent Psychology, what we're doing is putting you back in touch with the infinite. And what if there was a simple way to do it? That's what I spend all my time meditating on. What if there was a simple way to do it? Okay, so we get the principle. We understand the principle is that spiritual amnesia happens when we forget the self. We understand the pattern behind why we forget the self, which is that We forget the self because we are limited by the five senses due to the current stage of human evolution. In other words, future humans can develop sense organs that allow for them to expand their perception. There are already humans walking the planet who have an expanded sense of perception. That's all well and good. But if in the end you simply feel confined to a limited body who has a limited destiny, is it any wonder that people always struggle with two basic fears? Two basic fears. The two basic fears are the fear of lack and the fear of death. If you believe you are limited and that resources are limited, then it stands to reason that there isn't enough to go around. Of course, you would reason from a scarcity mindset. That's a lack based fear. If you believe you are limited and you believe life is short, of course, your time is finite and could be made more finite if something happens to your limited body. You dig what I'm saying? That's the fear of death. Okay. I just want you to understand how the limited five capacities of human perception, the five senses, create an optical illusion that forces the human being to see itself as a limited individual in a hostile world where it's winner take all. And until you can invite wisdom back into the process, someone who is seeing from that standpoint is going to quickly fall through the levels of spiritual amnesia. They've already forgotten who they are. They believed the optical illusion. What did the Buddhists call this optical illusion? What did the Buddhists call the optical illusion? Somebody put that in the chat right quick. What did the Buddha some 2,500 years ago call this optical illusion created by the five senses? I'm just curious. Who's been reading? Sublime saying nothing is higher than self. Excellent. Excellent. That's right. The Buddha, the Buddha called the illusion Maya. Maya, Maya. Okay, so great. So now we got the principle. Spiritual amnesia happens when you forget the self. We understand the pattern that you forget the self because you are limited by five senses due to the current level of human evolution. Okay, now we need the path. Now we need the path forward. What would that actually be? Oh, here it goes. That if you can remember love, you will remember the self. Ooh. If you can remember love, you will remember the self. This is as as high level as I can possibly make it. But first, we need to understand what love is. There's two ways to remember love, but if you can remember love, you will automatically remember the self. If you can remember love, you will automatically remember the self. That the levels and layers, the 7 levels of spiritual amnesia are nothing as compared to love. Mm, mm. That the 7 levels and layers of spiritual amnesia are nothing as compared to love. When I say love, I am talking about the end of separation. I am talking about oneness. Therefore, to return to love is to return to the deep fabric of existence, to that which cannot be separated out, to that which is the total substance of all that is. The name goes and is pronounced differently in different cultures. Some say the Tao, some say God, some say deep reality. I just call that love. Why do I call it love? I call it love because I know that wherever you have been in your life, you know what love is. Of course, the problem is that people start attaching love to things that love isn't. They start attaching love to memories of their past. They start just thinking of it as an emotion. And rather tonight, I'm asking for you to think of love as in two phases, let's call it. There is love, the mental position, which is where we can cleanse the windows of your perception such that you can see beyond the 5 senses and see to the unitary oneness that is existence and reality itself. That's the mental position. Once we can cleanse the lens of your perception such that you are actually looking at the world and seeing that, oh, it actually is one. You have to actually see it. It doesn't work if we just sit and talk about it. You have to actually see it. And so that's the role of our kits. That's the role of conscious transformation technologies, or kits for short, right? That we are talking about getting to a place where you can actually see this oneness. Because once we're there, we have the mental position. Then number 2 is to put our attention on and feel the energy of love. That oneness that I'm talking about, when you enter that mental position, that oneness will beget the emotion of love. You won't be able to stop it from coming to you. That emotion of love then can be utilized in some wonderful ways because that's really just the energy of love. So now we're talking about the mental position of love or oneness, and we're also talking about the energetic experience of love or oneness. You understand? And so those two positions are how we guide you back to the self, because the self is that unitary oneness. The self is that love. And once you are back there, oh, there's a whole world of wonder that opens up. There's a whole world of wonder that opens up. And so, just to recap the principle, spiritual amnesia happens when you forget the self. And the pattern behind that forgetfulness is bound up with the trouble of the five senses, human perception. That sense that you're limited because of what you can see, taste, touch, hear, smell. But the path forward is not to try and sit and remember some cosmic self. Just remember love, which automatically connects you back to the domain of oneness. And you're there, present, in power, in tune with the inner voice. Hmm. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. And so I got something I want to show you. Okay. So I'm not sure how this is gonna work, but I want to at least show you because I think that it could make sense. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it could. It's a let me just say it. One of my favorite shows growing up was a show called Dragon Ball Z. I started watching it in the second grade, and I lived on the West Coast, so we got it, before most people did in the United States. And so, but this show is all about going to the next level. It's all about ascending to new levels of mastery. And somebody that you know has definitely been watching this show. It's one of my favorites. Anyway, so I found this fan comic book. Uh, now I'll say this too. Dragon Ball Z, it did two things for me. One, it was entertaining, and then two, it introduced me to Eastern philosophy. This idea that people were flying around as if connected to an energy source that they access from within their own bodies. And the more that they strengthen this connection with this energy source, what they call chi, like the more that they were able to do these wonderful sort of superhuman things. So I hadn't seen anything like that in the United States. We grew up in the 90s, so that just was not readily available. But the show took it for granted. It didn't even try to explain it. It was just like, oh yeah, this is just what is. And so in China and Japan, these ideas are very familiar. And they're kept alive and they're a part of normal language. But in the States, they weren't. So anyway, I found this fan fiction, and to me, it was exciting based off of what I was seeing. It was exciting to me because it started walking through some of these steps that I believe are interesting when I start talking about love. So let me go to it. Sublime's got a question mark in there. Yeah, I know. But like, if this don't work, then you know what I'm saying, we'll go to something else. But the idea is I want to show you this at least first. Hold on. Let me see if I can pull it up because it'll have writing. You'll see it. All right. Oh, I should probably explain this. Okay, so the characters are like, uh, this is just a moment where a character is trying to explain this new power. This is not canon. It's just a moment where this character is trying to explain this new power. And the thing about fiction, it's just a piece of fiction, but the way that it articulates itself, it got my thoughts running. And so let me see if I can pull this up one time. Oh, okay. So now it's not even trying to do that.
His father means what he says, then questions if he ever explained to him what ultra instinct is. Which he hasn't, but he thinks he understands. It's when your body moves on its own, right? But that's an oversimplification. Normally, to move fast, we speed up the nerve signals that are sent across our body with ki.
But no matter how fast we may try, we still need time to carry those signals, which delays our movement by a small but significant factor. In Ultra Instinct, I can completely bypass this delay because I don't use my nervous system at all. Once I make an intention in my heart to act, my body automatically moves as fast as it can, as if my spirit and body are completely united. So the only things that delay this movement are one's physical limits and energy output, and an imperfect state of mind, doubts that dissolve clear intentions. So you can imagine, the greater half of my training for this involves training the mind. Explaining more would be difficult.
Okay. So that's all I wanted to show you, right? So this character is articulating what it means to like fight at fast speeds. Okay. So Twin, I see you saying we were the only kids in the neighborhood doing the moves and going full out. Okay, excellent. Thank you for not thank you for making me feel like people understand here. So the idea is this. They're talking about using the mind in order to speed up this sort of like nervous system energy that they call chi, and that they can use the mind in such a way they can actually increase the speed of their movements to unfathomable levels. Okay. But then they get to something called ultra instinct, where they're no longer even relying on the nervous system at all. And at that point, it's just the intention, and then the body moves as if the soul and body are completely united. So the only thing that then stands in the way are the doubts that dissolve clear intention. Mm, there's a lesson in there. What I'm saying is that this notion of love is like the notion of the ultra instinct. It is our return to our original nature. So once we're in love, there's no need for extraneous thought. There's no need for all the micro adjustments which we're constantly trying to do because we're afraid of getting an outcome we do not prefer. Instead, in love, we begin to rely on something that is greater than our own nervous system, greater than our own person. We surrender to a force that knows exactly how to operate, and it operates in alignment with our true intention. And the only thing that would stop it is our own doubts that muddy the intention and so cut off that connection with original nature, that connection with the ultra instinct, that connection with love itself. Are you seeing what I'm saying here? The idea is that to remember the self, to remember original nature is to return back to that love sequence. It's to return back to that. Because once we do have that, it's as if body and soul are completely united again. And how could they not be? Love is oneness, where body and soul simply operate in the highest capacity possible without you having to doubt, without you having to remember in the first place to forget. There's no question about being in spiritual amnesia. You don't even have to remember in the first place. You are that when you are in love. And by being in love, I'm talking about where you're not just feeling love, but you're following love. Love gives you the impulse to do something and you just do it. There is no distinction. There's no separation. There's no wait time. There's no, is this convenient for me or not? There's just the going. There's just the doing. This is true self-remembering. But it's not merely a intellectual process. The intellect can take us so far, but after a certain point we're going to have to move into an entirely different domain, one where something greater than ourselves takes over and puts us into a new kind of existence. Not where we live by human instinct, but live by ultra instinct. You see what I'm saying there? You got it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's the dragon. Okay. You get what I'm saying. We don't live by regular human instinct anymore, defined by the five senses. Now we live by the supreme instinct. You might even call it the ultra instinct. That one of love. You understand? And so before we hit the callers today, I cannot say enough. And we're going to see, I'm going to show you exactly how you can use something like love as a force for remedying forgetfulness, for remedying spiritual amnesia. I'm going to show you that by the end of today in real time when we take our caller for the evening. And so we're about to get just to that. But before we do, I want to make it clear that if you're somebody who is wanting to see how all of this works and you want to have a good time seeing how all of this works, I've created a TV show called Countdown to Breakthrough that is part entertainment but part therapy. The purpose of it is to be therapeutic. And so right now I have something called the Breakthrough Challenge, which is where if you hit the link in the description, what happens is you're going through, I'm going to send you a workbook, which is going to be an episode guide, a way to work through the different dimensions of your being as you watch Countdown to Breakthrough. It's going to be one episode per week, one transformation per week. This is actually entertainment that heals, especially if you're a person who's tired of seeing all these movies that come out and you walk out of the theater feeling like your frequency just dipped, feeling lower than when you woke up that morning, or you got something turned on and you don't even really want to sit and watch all of it because you don't know what kind of shenanigans they're going to try and pull out later on in the movie. What I'm interested in is showing you something that's actually going to leave you feeling high and lifted up by the time you finish watching it. And not only that, open a gateway for you to go deeper into yourself and into the truth, into the self as you watch. And so the Breakthrough Challenge is open right now. I highly encourage you to take a look at it, to not just take a look at it, to actually just go and do it. Join it. Because it is something that I believe is so impactful and so potent that it's something that you can do with other people. It's a show that you can actually watch with grandma and them and not feel like it's gonna be shenanigans. Okay, so train the mind. So Turbo Twin saying train the mind. It was right there in front of us the whole time. It was right there in front of us the whole time. It was right there in front of us the whole time. Me and my twin, because we healed and have the concept of generation, we have a debate, but we never fight or argue, and we do get mad 5 minutes tops. Excellent, 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 excellent. And so Without further, oh, hold on, hold on. Y'all hear that? I think it's that time again, man. Like, oh, it's Breakthrough Turtle. Breakthrough Turtle got something special for us. What's up, Breakthrough Turtle? What's up, B? I call him B for Breakthrough Turtle. You know what I'm saying? I'm not from New York, but he's from New York. Okay. So what you saying? Okay. Well, last time you did something special for us, so let's see what we got this time. Okay, so here go Break the Turtle right here. Mm, hmm. Break the Turtle gave us a little gift. Ooh. Okay. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. Rumi. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. Wow, Breakthrough Turtle. B. Incredible. Incredible. Because when I'm hearing you say, I mean, Rumi's like a, well, Rumi was writing like in the 1600s, right? Or was it the 1300s? Right. Rumi's a Persian poet writing centuries ago. And we're just talking about the 7 levels of spiritual amnesia. Might these 7 levels be the very barriers within yourself that you have built against love? Might the 7 levels of spiritual amnesia be the very barriers that you've built up against love? Wherein were you simply to remove the barriers, love must show itself, must reveal itself. Mm. Which means the self must reveal itself. Break the turtle, you did it again. You did it again. Because in the end, ours is not to seek for love, but to actually be the love that we seek. Mm. Mm. And so, folks, thank you, Break the Turtle. I mean, this is solid work. This is solid work. Thank you. I appreciate you, bro. So, folks, we're about to open up these calls and see if we cannot, as Rumi has said, through Breakthrough Turtle, remove the barriers within somebody that prevents them from experiencing love. See, there's just one more thing about the Rumi piece. A lot of times when we say love in this culture, when we say love as a word of the English language, we're often talking about love, something external. It's always something external. I love you. I love that. We even take ourselves, split ourselves in half and say, I love me. We even create that separation with ourselves and say, I love me. Like there's the I that loves the me and then the me that receives that love. It's always outer directed, even when we try and make it about ourselves. So when Rumi is saying, do not seek for love, he's saying, do not seek for love from the external. Do not seek for love from somebody else. Humans, we're constantly thinking in terms of love as in relationship. You say love, you want to find love. Someone's thinking that you want to find a relationship. You want to find a spouse or something like it, right? Like that's the idea. That people are looking for love in parental relationships, looking for love from children, looking for love from their friends, looking for love for whatever it is, looking for love anywhere. That's the notion and definition of seeking love. What if instead we expanded our definition such that love becomes the infinite self, where no person could fulfill that for you? No person could satisfy the conditions of giving you love in the same way that God can. That you're not looking for a person to be your source of love, but rather bearing witness to that eternal source of love that operates within once the barriers, what we're calling the 7 levels of amnesia, are gone. And so that's where we're going with our caller tonight, whoever they may be. If you want to be on the Breakthrough Live, do just let me know. Just say, hey, look, I want to be on. And then I'm going to send you some questions that you can answer real quick just to kind of make our joint go faster. Because as we're talking, I just want to make it clear that as we remove these barriers, we no longer have to seek love in someone else. Not that we'd find it there anyway, not an infinite supply. That would not be a reliable source anyway, but we would no longer have to seek it out in others. We would no longer have to search for love out in the world. Because really, the search for love is really a search for God, which is another way of saying the search for the self. We're just trying to remember that original infinite consciousness, infinite awareness, supreme awareness, that eternity and infinity. When you were there, everything is just trying to get us back to that place. And what I'm saying is that love happens to be that superpower that not only brings you back, but keeps you. More than intellectual, it keeps you. It's not a remembering that you got to go back and say, "Oh, well, I forget. I am infinite consciousness." Like you don't have to do all that. It's enough to abide in love, which is the same thing as saying self-remembering. Because that which is infinite and one is already itself, as long as you're abiding in it. And so, Twin saying, I received that. Excellent, excellent, excellent. He said, Twin saying, he said, where's my kiss at? Yeah, so you break the turtle, sometimes you're asking for things that are unreasonable, you know what I'm saying? Um, okay, folks, so let's go ahead and get to our caller for the evening. you could introduce yourself, tell people who you are and where you're from, we'll get started like that.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Valente Fanning. I'm originally from Washington, Georgia, but I have been living in Brooklyn, New York for 11 years on and off, and I'm the founder and owner of V Management New York, located in Brooklyn, New York, where we scout, develop, and book fashion models. And I've been doing that for 10 years, and I'm just really excited to see where life takes me.
This is kind of incredible. When you've been in Brooklyn for 11 years, and I'm just looking at your sheet that you filled out to come on the show. And one of the things that we've been talking about is generational trauma, and we've been talking about self-worth. Okay. And so, a lot of times the most successful among us are the ones who are dealing with a certain level of worth, self-worth issues. And so one of the things that I saw from you was, that on your sheet there was the checkbox for generational trauma and the checkbox for self-worth. And those things, with you being in Brooklyn, with you growing up in the era of time that you grew up, can you give us a sense of what that means, of what that struggle has been like for you? When you bring up the idea of self-worth, what does that call out in you? What's it make you think of and respond to, such that you would want to even have a conversation about it today?
It makes me think of my highest form of expression. That's something that I always pray for every day. I grew up being conditioned to feel small and to feel humble. Like, it was such a very, very big push for me to be humble for some reason. Even though I was quite introverted and quite shy and growing up, there was such a very, very big push for me to be humbled for some apparent reason. And
what did that look like? When, what were the things that people said to you, and when would they say it? I want to start in childhood. I want to start there, because you're right. You're saying for some reason there's a push to say, hey, listen, don't stand out too much. Don't, we don't need you to be too friendly. We don't need you to be too gregarious. We don't need you. I'm just telling you what I've heard people say to me. So I'm wondering what they say to you.
Exactly. The same sentiments of, oh, don't be doing too much, and oh, you too hyper. That was a lot of things because I was born with certain gifts, and I would exercise them because I would think that anybody else can do it, but it was such a very concerted effort in that matter once that was discovered, to humble and make me feel small. You know what I mean? In more ways than one, and so growing up, that kind of affected my self-worth because I would get reprimanded. And how I get reprimanded was through verbal abuse, like you anorexic, because I was very, very skinny. You anorexic, you black and ugly, and stuff like that. And this is not coming from, outsiders. This is actually happening in my home. From a parental figure. And so when this is an authoritative figure and a parental figure that is telling you this, it can really have effect on your self-worth. And especially if this is something that has been taking place consistently for quite some time, it's kind of like embedded in you, kind of conditioned in you. And so, even though I would have other people telling me otherwise, that's how I felt. I could literally get compliments every day. But the fact that I had that programming and I had that conditioning over time, growing up, it kind of stayed.
What was it? What do you think it was in them that made them feel like, hey, listen, he's doing the most. I don't want him to, do you feel like it was a protective mechanism that they were trying to maybe stunt your ambitions so that you wouldn't put yourself out into a situation where they felt you might be hurt? Or do you think that it was a reflection of somebody else's own inner?
Yes, it was a mixture of fear of like their projection, because when I was young, I was ready. I was ready. I was ready for show business. I was ready for entertainment. My mom didn't have to do much. I was just ready. I just had that natural inclination in me. I mean, if that's the right word I'm looking for. I was ready. You know what I mean? And I like to actually the power of my manifestation is crazy because I was actually looking for you because I didn't see you post. I will usually see your YouTube posts. But I actually went to search her name on my email address. I said, well, what Dr. Shawn is up to these days? Because I haven't seen you on YouTube. And then you sent the link or you sent me the notification about this show. And I'm just like, wow, the power of my manifestation. And the last time we had a conversation, you spoke to me about a term I really love and that I like to use, supreme awareness.
Mm.
I was all the way in my supreme awareness when I was younger. Like I knew exactly who I was. I knew exactly what I came here for. I was ready for it. But it was once again, it was such a very concerted effort to diminish me and make me small.
You've brought up a couple of things that are giving me goosebumps right now, which is that you remember what that supreme awareness is, and when you speak, because our last conversation, which was in the I think one of the master classes, you know, I remember I remember talking about that, but now when I hear you say the words, I'm like, oh, there's been a deepening that's happened, right? Just with you saying those words, I'm like, okay, I can feel that you've been just reflecting, but also deepening in this understanding. And so much so that you can recognize when you were in alignment. You know that the children come through, babies come through with an understanding of God energy. They come through with that divine energy. In fact, there are entire African traditions of spirituality that say that the babies are just our ancestors returned, right? So imagine your child is really your grandparent returned back, and they still have all of the wisdom of all of these years. They're still dripping in God energy, divine energy. And when we interfere based on our own fears that we've picked up along the way, that can interrupt that frequency that you can see in every child. And what I hear you saying you remember the sound of that frequency. I'm hearing you say that you remember that when you were a child, you were in that supreme awareness, and there was a great sense of I am. There was no, it's not superiority. It's not a, oh, I'm better than somebody else. It's I am. You know you were talented. You could feel it without somebody even telling you. You could feel it. You could feel it. So tell me, at what point does that feeling, that divine signature that God placed in you, tell me at what point that starts to get overlooked? You begin to turn toward what other people are saying and start believing in what they're saying. Right? They're telling the child that, hey, why don't you just calm that down a little bit too? Why don't you just not too much? Why don't you? They're telling you to act and be a certain way. And I'm wondering how that showed up for you, how that habit of making yourself small showed up for you when it came time to be an adult and be a bold adult.
I made myself small because, you know, in fashion, you got to be an intern because, you know, I didn't just own an agency. I really started at the bottom. I actually started off as a model. I got scouted as a model first in Atlanta.
Okay.
Yes, I had a mother agent. A mother agent is the first contact that you meet to introduce you to the modeling industry. So I had a mother agent that scouted me in Atlanta and everything. But during that time, Dr. Shawn, they wasn't booking models of color. There was
Word.
yes, it will always it will be either one token model, black model per year to represent the whole black, you know, population.
Right.
Because I would go to castings and they would have a sign on the door, no black models, you know, and that's just what it is. And I would literally go to castings and they'd say no black models on there. During that phase, a lot of people are really down on you, hard on you, and really beating down on your self-worth and your self-confidence.
What's so interesting is that your childhood, where people are telling you to be small, people are saying, hey, look, why don't you go ahead and step back? Why don't you go ahead and kind of shorten and diminish your light, dim your light a bit? What's so fascinating is that that childhood trauma gets mirrored in adulthood when you're seeing the signs that say, hey, listen, no black models. We don't have a need for you, right? Whatever light you do have, we've dimmed it so low that there will be one person out of thousands working this year. We do not need your light. And so when you encounter that, what I'm suggesting for you is that when we talk about alchemy, let me show you how wonderful you are, which is that's multi-year trauma. You get what I'm saying? The fact is that you're having something being presented to you in childhood, and then you're having it reflected to you in adulthood when you're in pursuit of your dreams. And so what the impact of that is that if that were the first time, them just saying, oh, no black models, and that was the first time that anyone had ever put some resistance in front of you, you might be able to step up over that, whatever. But the fact is that that moment reinforced all of the moments that came before, right? It reinforced all of the moments that came before where someone's saying, we don't really want you to be put out there. Frankly, we don't really want to see you, right? We don't want to see you. And so when that happens, that's a long way to go in terms of trying to heal. I think a lot of times we think that it's just the situation, the one little thing. I can hear people at home thinking, oh, okay, well, he had to go through the hard knocks like everybody else did. But it's like, no. Because we're not just talking about one incident. We're talking about a string of incidences that existed since childhood. And that leaves a residue of trauma that you can't just wipe clean just by wishing it away or trying to cross your fingers.
I gotta speak on that.
Absolutely.
You are absolutely right. Because I want to say I got back to New York 2 months ago, but I was in Washington, Wilkes, Georgia, where I'm originally from. For like a year and a half, I was learning local government. I was being involved in local organizations, but I also was healing my inner child. That's why I was really there. But I couldn't tell people that. You get what I'm saying? People down there, they don't understand. Oh yeah, I'm healing my inner child. They don't understand anything. They'll look at you like you're crazy. So I was mainly covering up by being involved in like local government, really learning about running the city and stuff like that. They really wanted me to be city council, but I couldn't. Because I knew I wanted to come back to New York, but I spent that time healing my inner child because by that time I'm 34. I'm trying to make sure that I expand in life, in my ascended master journey, and really find myself as an ascended master and what that looks like and what that feels like. So I spent a lot of time meditation. I would go into the forest and I would just forest bathe and I would meditate, just really letting go of all of that trauma that has been strung along. And then I also had realized while I was doing my inner child healing in Georgia that I really neglected my inner child because you know, that inner child had dreams and stuff, but I neglected it, and just out of fear and not wanting to go through certain trauma. But to your point earlier, it was a series of events that was actually that inner child revealed to me was very organized and very, what's the word I'm looking for? Orchestrated in a sense, very intentional. And my inner child, I was just amazed at what he was revealing to me, what happened and what I need to do. And again, Dr. Shawn, that's part of my alchemizing work. You know, I wanted to alchemize that particular situation that he went through.
Knowing especially that there's somebody else going through or about to go through the same thing. You know, what's one thing that you want to let go of today, but you just can't yet?
It's spiritual amnesia.
Oh, okay. Say that one more time. You say
This spiritual amnesia. I feel like I'm
spiritual.
almost, yeah, spiritual amnesia of who I really am. I know that my life and what I've experienced, um, you know, it's a false identity. I'm playing a role, and it was designed to be that way, through amnesia.
And that spiritual amnesia, when I hear you say that, ooh, I know everybody feels that one because what I'm hearing you say is you know who you are, and there are these moments of clear judgment. I understand who I am. I understand my purpose. I understand what I am to do, and I'm able to act from my strong side. And then all of a sudden, life happens as it does. And now all of a sudden, there's kind of this the I know who I am thing goes out the window. Is you know what I'm saying? Now it's let me deal with this problem right quick. Maybe it's making payroll, or maybe it's whatever. Do you know you run a business, so you understand however many complications can come up through that thing. Like all of a sudden, the truth that you know is nowhere to be found. And in those moments, that's when we get to asking God, why, how come, you know what I'm saying? That's when we get to, and I'm saying for myself too, that's when we get to going off and onto different tangents when really we're only being asked to remember who we actually are. And so to that point, I have a gift for you today because I think the thing that I hear the most from people is, hey, listen, I am now stepping into my ascendant mastery season. The problem is that my highs are really wonderful, but my lows feel like I completely forget everything that I just learned in at the high point. I completely forget all of the things. I have this sort of spiritual amnesia, this forgetting process that happens. And that's the thing that I want to close out with because there's a few threads that I'm going to kind of weave here. And the thing is this, you were just talking about this inner child that has shown up to be your hero. It's yourself, but it has shown up to be your hero in dialogue with this inner child. And so what we're going to do is a kit that I'm is actually just coming out right now. I've never done this one before, but the idea is that as I'm hearing you speak, I'm thinking two things. One, spiritual amnesia. What happens when we do all of the inner work, which has come up in this conversation between you and I? What happens when we do all of the inner work and still we have our moments of forgetting? Number two, coming back to this notion of forgiveness, you understand that they wanted to stifle that inner child, but by entering into dialogue with that inner child, we get to this number three stage, which is the inner child has shown up for you. Now, in this kit, I want you to show up for it. And so, what we're going to do right now is
Go ahead, Dr. Shawn. I like that.
What we're going to do right now is just close your eyes. And right now, I want you to focus on the energy of love. That feeling that wells up in your heart when you think of how God feels about you. His perfect creation. Flaws and all,
summon that energy of love right to your heart. And as you do, I want you to raise your hands right to the middle of your chest, as if you were going to be holding a ball in between your hands. That feeling of love, go ahead and watch it form a white ball of light moving out of your chest and right into the middle of your hands. Feel that love, light, circulating like a rotating ball of white light in between your hands. There's so much love here. And now, in your mind's eye, see that young child. Look back through time, whatever he may be doing right now. Maybe he's watching television. Maybe he's having his favorite snack.
No, I'm seeing what he's doing.
Go
He's running
into
around with this ball that you showing me, and it's pretty too. I like it. Keep going. He running around with it. I like that.
beautiful. Just see his face, and you know all of the potential that God placed inside of him. And so, what I want you to do right now is, though he's already got the ball, I want you to see this white ball of love light enter into his chest, right into his heart, and flash brilliantly in all white light. His eyes have a sparkle behind them like never before. See that ball of love light enter into his chest, into his heart now, and watch how he responds.
And then that's why I started laughing.
Because this white ball of love light has entered his chest. This young child, which is you, he's so full of love now. And he's saying thank you. And I just want you to look at him in his eyes and repeat after me. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love you.
I love you.
And I'm so proud.
And I'm very proud of you.
And I'm so proud of who you've allowed me to become.
And I'm so proud of who you allowed me to become.
Excellent. And all just there, he says, thank you.
Thank you.
Notice that this love energy that you've now placed inside of this little child is also still now somehow back with you. And notice that where this love light is, there can be no depression.
love feels too good. And notice that if you can just remember this love that you've placed into this young child, which means the love that's already within you, that is true self-remembering. In which case, amnesia is impossible because you are remembering the truth of you. In this moment, just bask in that love that you feel inside of your own chest and say thank you.
Thank you.
I am so grateful for who I've become.
For who I've become.
Beautiful. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes.
Oh wow. It feels nice, like right here.
You say it feels nice right here?
It feels nice right here, yeah.
That is who you really are.
Wow.
And so remember just that. Anytime it feels like, oh man, the world is falling apart or whatever, being able to come back to this love, the beauty of it is that 1 John 4:16 says that God is love, and whosoever abides in love abides with God, and therefore what we are touching today, is our unity with the divine. We just so happen to call it love. So yeah, it's going to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. It don't ever stop feeling good because God is good
All the time.
and all the time.
God is good. You said
Absolutely.
that right.
Valente, I just want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, brother.
And thank you for sharing, for having that vulnerability. And my wish for you is that you will return back to that feeling, to that love feeling. You know you have it because you put it in yourself back through time, so such that you've had it all along now.
He was so overjoyed. He was really jumping. Like I saw, which was crazy. I really saw that. He was jumping on the trampoline and he had his arms up and he was literally, like you said, kind of like glowing a little bit. He was very excited. So I don't know what's happening and what kind of shift, but I'm excited to see what's to come of this. The after effects of that.
Me too. Me too. And so if you've received it, I just want to say thank you for coming on. And I want to say have a blessed day. And my God, just keep abiding in that. Yeah. Because that joy that the little one is experiencing while he's hanging and singing and dancing, it's eternal.
Okay.
So I'm going to say thank you so much, man.
All right. I appreciate you, Dr. Shawn.
Absolutely, Valente.
All right. Peace.
Peace. Okay. Shout out to Valente. Shout out to Valente. You know, folks, very, very, very proud of Valente, very, very proud of anyone who is willing to come on this show and be vulnerable. And I must say, if you do like what you are experiencing on the Breakthrough Live, go ahead and leave a like and share this video, this live with anyone who may need it. I think that one of the big ways that we can continue to have this expansion of light, because once you're on the Breakthrough Live and you come through like Valente just came through, being authentic, being vulnerable, opening yourself up for a breakthrough, you start to experience things and you don't have to even make sense of it all tonight. But in the coming nights, more will be revealed, even when you're not on live anymore. The breakthroughs that happen here carry over. And so when we can share that experience with other people in our lives, in our communities, just by sharing a video, that's the real purpose of this show. That's the real reason that I wanted to make sure that we had something like this, is so that our own healing can be a guide for others, that our own vulnerability can serve others. And so that's the point of the show. Gino Jordan, don't think I don't see you. Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. She said, breakthrough Dr. Shawn, the love light resonates through his community. Dr. Shawn, bad to the bone, hilarious. Uh, oh yes, moon imagery. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, I got high fives in the chat for Gino. Super claps for Valente for coming through on the breakthrough live. It's just so essential that we have a place where we can have this vulnerability, but also this opportunity for breakthrough, for true transformation. And conscious transformation technologies, they just make us the kits that I just did with Valente, but there's so many, like, they just get us ready for breakthrough. And a breakthrough happens anytime we listen to love. And so, folks, we're coming to Twin is saying shout out to Valente. Absolutely. Gino saying, Doc, we subscribe it in, like it. Okay, excellent, excellent, excellent. Yeah, subscribe to it. I forgot. Yeah, just subscribe, like, share. You know what I'm saying? They do the whole thing, the whole thing. But folks, we're coming to that time in our evening where we return back to the source itself. With Valente, we got to explore a bit of what that love energy can do. What you call the love emotion is just love energy. But for some people, it can be very, very difficult to even sense that energy. With Valente, I can kind of gauge where he's at. I can read his frequency, and so I can tell that he's ready for a certain something. Somebody else, I might have, I gotta do something different. But what I'm about to do right now works for anybody, anybody, and it's what it means to return to supreme awareness. Because guess what? Once we're back into base awareness, base consciousness, the love energy that I'm talking about will reveal itself. Remember that in Transcendent Psychology, of course, the book Spiritual Responsibility is first step, supreme awareness. I'm going to get as close as I can there. Supreme awareness. We always come back to supreme awareness because we want to ensure that we're operating from the truest place from the start. No matter how far we go with the mind, no matter what we end up creating with the mind, we begin and end in God. We begin and end in that infinite awareness, in that consciousness. That's what we're closing out our show with, is a conscious transformation technology, a kit that you can use. Something that is always available. We return to the supreme awareness. If you're a person who can't feel love on command, no problem. Simply by making a practice out of returning to awareness, like we're just about to do in just a second, simply by returning to this awareness and abiding in it, the frequency of love will show itself. It will reveal itself simply by removing the barriers that you've put up to it, simply by moving back through and undoing the 7 levels of spiritual amnesia. Very, very powerful. Valente saying much gratitude to you, Dr. Shawn. Your technique is phenomenal. Um, Valente saying I emailed you a photo of the inner child you healed. That's so beautiful. Gino saying, Doc, do you do breath work? Gino saying, where's the book? Amazon. Shout out to you. Shout out to you, Gino. So yeah, the book, I think book is in the link in the description, of course. It is on Amazon. Just so you know, I'm saying I can send it anywhere, no matter if you're in the States or not. But this is so beautiful, folks, is to be able to have this gorgeous experience. Gino is my big brother from Washington. Joy. Oh, word. Oh, okay. Valente got the family coming through. Now, see what I'm talking about. Valente, they got the family coming through. Right on. Okay. So Gino is Valente's is that your biological brother, Valente? Wow, 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 wow. Okay. So Gino's asking, do we do breath work? Everything's included. And we don't call it that. Of course, you just call them conscious transformation technologies. Everything's just a what we call a kit, which is just short for conscious transformation technology. What we do is we have a different system for organizing our techniques so that we walk away actually with a profound difference in our frequency, a profound transformation. We wouldn't just stop at breath work. It would just be on the way. It's just on the way. It's just on the way. And so, excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay, so let's get to it, folks. Right now, let's follow the breath in. Close your eyes and inhale. As you do, expand your awareness so that you watch the air enter into your nostrils and flow all the way down to the space just beneath your belly button. Continue to breathe into this space just under your belly button. Feel your belly expand in all four directions as you inhale. You do not need to force this. Simply watch as air enters into your nostrils and begins to fill your belly. Notice your exhale as it leaves your body, and allow your inhale to happen on its own. When thoughts come, allow them to exist and return right back to witnessing the air fill your belly. At this time, notice the awareness that watches air enter through your nostrils. Notice the awareness that watches air enter into your nostrils and flow down, filling your belly. Notice that this awareness is simply aware. The awareness does not flow. The awareness watches flow. Notice that no matter what you do or how you breathe, awareness is simply aware. This awareness watches all things come and go, like the air filling your belly and the air leaving your body on your exhale. Notice that air comes and goes, but awareness simply watches, always aware. Awareness is not in the past nor the future. Awareness is simply here, now, watching. Awareness cannot go into the past nor the future, for those do not exist to awareness. There is only this aware moment, watching the breath fill up the belly, watching the breath exit the belly. As long as you are with this awareness, you cannot come nor go. For awareness does not come nor go. Awareness is simply aware. Thoughts come and go. Breath comes and goes. Time comes and goes. All comes and goes. Only awareness remains. Simply aware. This is eternity. This is infinity. When you are ready, take a deep inhale in, a deep exhale out, and open your eyes. Folks, this is the beauty. As we wrap tonight, I'm seeing I'm seeing some people asking or saying, I'm just trying to get there. I've heard people say, I'm just trying to get there. But the point of our final exercise of the night is to show you that the awareness that you are is already there. And to remember that is to leave behind all that isn't yourself, including the 7 levels of spiritual amnesia, and return back to self. In time, just sitting with that basic awareness, more will be revealed. For people who find it difficult to love on command, spend time in that awareness, and more will be revealed. And so, folks, this beauty, may it be yours. Because in the end, if fear is our only enemy, then we bring heaven to earth when we transform our minds. I'm Dr. Shawn, and we were not sent to impress our people. We were sent to transform our people into a light for the world. For God's universe opens to all who believe in breakthrough.